You know, of all scams, the face-to-face con has to be the most dangerous. I hesitate to say the most ballsy because it turns out women are really good at this kind of scam. Let's take a look at history's most infamous con women tonight on Deep Fat Fried.
Deep Fat Fried!
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I love these stories, man, dude. I got to tell you here at the top that, like, when it comes to all the scams, I kind of respect this hustle the most. I don't sanction it. I don't think that it's okay for people to do this to each other. But I got to say, there's something very brazen about looking somebody right in the fucking face and giving them the old razzle dazzle, hoopla, flim flam, zim zam, wham bam, thank you, ma'am.
Oh, yeah.
And I find that people that are able to, like, make a living, like, they just can't do anything else. You know what I mean? When you learn about con people, either men or women, you find out that most of them that we know about were just so dedicated to it that they never did anything else, really.
I mean, because once you crack the code and you realize, like, how easy it is to just fucking get what you need off of fucking saps, is like, how do you fucking resist?
Yeah. I mean, there's a predatory element too, because they have to find someone they think is going to be a good mark for it. Because I mean, obviously, someone super skeptical is a bad mark. You have to find someone that's going to be susceptible to whatever your scam is. You know, and there's a lot of ways it's engineered. Like, greed is a huge motivator in a lot of these things. It's like,
absolutely.
Oh my God, you're going to get so rich if you help me. If you help me, and I can give you the location of this island, or I can sell you this thing. You know, like the money printing machine. So there's just a lot of elements to it that usually, like, you have to be a willing participant in it, and and you're deceived in a way that you only learn the information as enough time has gone on. Where, like, this person's like, oh, I'm going to bring this thing back to you, and then they leave town. So you have to figure it out. Basically, like, hey, they're not coming back.
So this is Big Bertha Hayman, also known as the Con Queen, or the Confidence Queen. The first con woman that we will cover today was born in Prussia, immigrated to the United States in 1878. She married twice, once in New York and once in Wisconsin, and took on the surname of her second husband, John Hayman. Hayman guy, dude. She was described by famed New York City detective Thomas F. Burns as one of the smartest confidence women in America. Her name was Bertha Hayman. But she gained the moniker Big Bertha due to the fact that she was short and stout, as you can see. According to the somewhat crude descriptions in the newspapers of the day, Bertha was built like a tank, but what she lacked in society-approved feminine wiles, she more than made up with in charisma. The detective Burns profiled her in his 1886 book, Professional Criminals of America. So you can see people love that true crime shit even back in the day.
Yeah, I don't know why people want to act like that's some new trend. Like, people have always been fascinated by crime and criminals.
Yep. And he described her in that book as follows: 35 years old in 1886, born in Germany, which was wrong. She was born in Prussia. I guess it's the same thing, right? Married,
time, probably.
Very stout woman. Height 5'4.5" weight 245 pounds. So if she was 5'4" and weighed almost 250 pounds, she was chunk, dude. She was up there.
She was definitely stout.
Hair brown, eyes brown, fair complexion, German face, an excellent talker, has 4 moles on her right cheek. So I guess you could say she certainly proves that traditional beauty isn't necessary. I think a lot of people, when they think of female con men, are like, they use the sex swindle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not necessarily.
And in fact, not usually. When it comes to, like, really successful big cons, you don't hear it. I couldn't find a whole lot of.
I think a lot of that probably has to do with Hollywood, because it's like, oh, they don't want to have Big Bertha in the movie, so they're like, oh, we want to fucking cast some, like, sleek, sexy looking little fucking thing. So yeah, they throw that in there.
Yeah, you want an ingenue, like Big Bertha ain't gonna be it,
because she ain't gonna sell them tickets the way that
right.
Fucking some sex symbol.
Yeah, look, you see Big Bertha on the poster. Damn, she fat.
So
now, Big Bertha might have got my ass in the theater.
She just like,
we know she wasn't throwing it back. So what was her con? She pulled off an impressive number of capers over the course of her career, most of which hewed to a similar core premise. And this is still going to this day. This will sound familiar. She claimed to be a fabulously wealthy woman who was having trouble accessing her abundant funds.
She's doing the Nigerian scammer fucking thing, dude. She's doing the face-to-face Nigerian scammer.
Yep.
I love it.
And if a kind man would simply lend her a small cut of the money, that she would access her estate and pay him back handsomely. Usually something like threefold or something. You know what I mean? Just some absurd return on your investment. Yeah, it was basically the 19th century version of the, Nigerian email scam.
I am a Nigerian prince, and only you can save me, blah, blah, blah.
As successful as she was arrested and jailed numerous times over the course of her career. I guess that probably speaks to just how much she was out here doing this hustle. She was arrested in September 1880 for conning a sleeping car conductor that she had met while on a train from Chicago. Check this out. She told him she had a large estate that she wanted him to manage. She wanted him to quit her job on her promise to hire him, wanted him to quit his job on her promise to hire him. So she had him quit his job as a train operator.
He's like, done.
Yep. And then she told him that she then needed to borrow a little bit of money to obtain the sum that was due to her from her agent, and furthered the deception by taking him to a large house that she claimed to own that was somebody else's. And like showing him around, oh, look, here's where I live. This should be credit enough. Now give me the money and let's get on with it. So she basically just like ruined this dude. So yeah, she definitely had the bullshit, the gift of gab, I guess you would say.
Oh yeah, because I mean, like, you have to to get someone to do all this. Like, yeah, obviously there's an appeal of, oh, you're going to be rich, but you have to convince them that you actually are rich, and there actually is something to this. Because a lot of people are just going to go, oh, you're full of shit.
And she was willing to go so far as to just walk brazenly into a house she hoped was empty and show a dude around and be like, see? Fool. So she was soon arrested again in London, Ontario on February 8th, 1881, charged with swindling several $100s from a Montreal businessman, which shouldn't even be a crime, to be honest with you, ripping off a Canadian.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Especially a businessman in Canada.
I mean, look,
2 strikes.
I mean, she wasn't American, right, but I mean, she lived in America. Look, I mean, any money taken from Canadians, honestly, is reparations for having to live near them.
Apparently, she got like $250 and a couple of gold watches off of an elderly woman who she lived with in Staten Island, but she got acquitted of that. She managed to beat some of these charges, I guess. She was arrested again while leaving the court. So this time she was on her way out of the court, and they arrested her on another case. This one for conning 2 New York City businessmen out of a total of $1,460. So they were like, all right, you're free to go. And then she almost got out of the court, and they were like, excuse me, you're under arrest.
Assholes.
So she was convicted on one of the indictments, sentenced on October 29th, 1881 to 2 years in prison. Even after being caught and arrested, she swindled people out of hundreds, even while she was in jail. Oh
my God.
She was serving time on Blackwell's Island in New York, which is, pictured here, in the early 1880s. She managed to befriend and con a man out of his entire life savings of $900. That's more like $20,000 or so today. Not only did she swindle more victims while in jail, but also convinced prison officials to allow her breaks from confinement to take carriage rides around Manhattan and visit the theater. Who knows how the fuck.
This was a charismatic fucking woman,
yes.
Basically. She knew how to talk people into pretty much anything she wanted them to do. She
lowered everything to 2 and put everything into charisma. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So she had her jailers convinced to let her just go out on the town every once in a while and have a good time, and she's scamming money while she's in there.
Fucking scamming while in. I don't know, man. I think the way to deal with this woman basically just been to lock her in a cell and not let anyone talk to her.
As part of scamming her own attorney, she once claimed to be worth $20 million. So, she even ran the scam on her own fucking attorney.
I love her, dude. The lawyer, most times the lawyer ends up fucking you. She ended up fucking her lawyer. It's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
For some years, she drifted around New York, stealing watches and jewelry, forging checks and bonds, and consequently moving through the New York penitentiary as if she were a revolving door. In February 1888, Bertha Stanley visited Dr. Messing, chief rabbi of the Beth Israel congregation, accompanied by her stepson, Willie. I guess he's pictured here. She told the rabbi that she had inherited $300,000, which is like $6 million today, from her husband, who was a Christian, but she wanted her next marriage to be with somebody in her original faith, which was Judaism, of course, according to this con. Bertha offered $1,000 to the person who would find her a thoroughly acceptable Jewish husband. She visited Dr. Messing frequently and met Messing's brother-in-law, Abraham Grun, a wealthy businessman. Bertha used her considerable charms on him, and he proposed in a matter of days. So even though she wasn't conventionally attractive, she managed to convince dudes that she was. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, she obviously had a lot going on in charm, and just like, you can't fucking underestimate the fucking power.
But it's also, it's greed, because these guys are like, well, even how they feel about that. They get talked into it
she's
because
coming
of
in all this money too, and then she's like obviously super charming and fucking witty and shit.
How did she get out of jail? It's like, yeah, it was charisma, but it's also the fact is that she's gonna grease some fucking palms. They know she can make a bunch of money. They know she's a good scammer, so it's like, all right, you can scam, but you got to pay us some money too. That's all that was.
Yeah. So she was quickly accepted by the Beth Israel congregation, which led her to have credit extended to her from several Jewish businesses. She used the credit to expand her wardrobe and acquire some pretty expensive jewelry. After Bertha gave the congregation a check for $1,000, she informed Grun that her stepson opposed their marriage. She suggested that Grun offer him a loan of $500 as a sign of friendship. So this was basically like, how do we double up on this scam? Oh, you pretend to be my son who won't accept the terms unless we get him another $500 out of him. So Grun complied, and Bertha and her stepson vanished with the jewels and the money and all of the stuff that they'd bought on credit. When Bertha's check to the congregation was returned for insufficient funds, a visit to the San Francisco police led to the discovery that she was actually Bertha Hayman, who, well known in law enforcement circles now.
Yeah.
Bertha got you, huh?
She scammed the whole fucking congregation. I love it.
Pretty awesome. That she took off and headed for Los Angeles after pawning all the jewels that she stole. A warrant was soon out for her based on the San Francisco charges, but she eluded police until finally being located and arrested in Texas. She was returned from trial. She was acquitted, though her stepson was convicted of a minor charge. Her story spread across San Francisco. Bertha was approached to do a one-woman show in which she recreated her scandals in an opera house. So she's paid to act out her own criminal history on stage. She was that charismatic. People would just watch her pretend to scam people. She often played scenes from Romeo and Juliet with an actor named Oofty Goofty, who had
Goofty.
Oofty Goofty. Yeah, he made a name as a human punching bag.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, pretty fun. That would have been pretty fun, I guess.
Dude, the careers that died, man.
The show was a fucking hit, and she soon toured the West Coast, frequently engaging in wrestling bouts with any man who dared to fucking step in the ring, and she generally would knock them out. She faded from the scene after her stage career faltered, and when and where she died is disputed, as one might expect from a person like this. Of course, there's going to be controversy beyond the end. She acted as sort of a Robin Hood figure and apparently gave all of her illicitly acquired treasures to the poor. According to her, she did it for the joy of the hustle. The moment I discover a man's a fool, I let him drop. But I delight in getting the confidence and pockets of men who think they can't be skinned. It ministers to my intellectual pride.
So she's like saying basically like, I don't want the fucking everyday like dipshit sucker. I want to fucking get the guy that thinks he can't be got.
Right,
and that's more of a thrill.
And it's also not even about, and it's not even about the monetary gain at the end for her. It's more about just getting one over on somebody who thinks they're smarter than her,
which is pretty dope.
Yeah,
I'm sure she kept a healthy chunk of the change as well.
Yeah, I'm sure she did too. So let's talk about our next lady con, Sarah Rachel Russell, also known as the Beautician from Hell.
Dun, dun, dun. Fuck.
Sarah Rachel Russell was born to a Jewish theatrical family in London around 1814. She grew up on London's overcrowded, poverty-stricken East End, where she sold rabbit skins, used clothes, and dried fish. She was so definitely a different kind of origin
Rabbit
story.
skins, used clothes, dried fish.
Yep.
Hey, I guess that's what they had to sell.
I mean,
Okay.
hey, if you needed a
what you gotta
rabbit
do, right?
skin, you were glad they were out there, She was first married to an assistant chemist in Manchester, but he unfortunately died. And in 1844, she remarried Jacob Moses, who deserted her in 1846 and then later drowned when the Royal Charter sank in 1859. He was on the boat. Since women in the 1800s couldn't do much to support themselves without husbands, she was forced to resort to things like prostitution and fortune telling. Eventually, she moved in with a man named Philip Levison. She worked as a clothes dealer and later was briefly jailed for procurement before selling cosmetics and toilet requisites in 1860 using a pamphlet entitled Beautiful Forever. That will become that you'll see there's a pattern to that as we go. However, a stint in jail wasn't enough to dissuade her from exploiting women's desire for beauty and the appearance of youth. So this was an early, I'll make you young again, huckster.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that.
Using one of the people's most people are willing to believe a lot when it comes to assuaging that sort of insecurity, like the fear of aging. I have the secret to reversing the aging process. Wow, really?
Right. So in the 1860s, British women who wanted to wear makeup had to do so on the down low. In a decree that absolutely nobody asked for, Queen Victoria declared skin cosmetics to be vulgar and unladylike, fit only for the theater or the brothel. So when Madame Rachel opened up shop, society ladies couldn't queue up fast enough. In 1863, Madame Rachel opened a salon on London's Bond Street with the words "Beautiful Forever" emblazoned above the door. She peddled strange, opulent cosmetics for astronomical high prices. Does this sound familiar at all? So she was basically like an upscale snake oil salesman.
Yeah.
Like a legitimized snake oil salesman.
We only sell the finest snake oil here, not a garden variety.
She's running like the goop of the day, dude.
Yeah.
She's running goop.
Yeah, she was, literally running the fucking Gwyneth Paltrow goop scam.
Dude, so the template's been there for a while. It's like you look back to the hucksters of see they package it now so it's legitimate. So you can actually do this legitimately now. It's like she was just ahead of her time. That's all she was.
Yeah. So she sold items such as rejuvenating Jordan water, which sold for 10 to 20 guineas a bottle. It's about $1,000 today.
What?
Mm-hmm. Her magnetic water, she had this stuff. Oh shit. Oh god. Well, I don't know how that happened.
Hey Andy.
Yeah, let me fix this shit, you stupid goddamn cunt sucking bitch. All right.
Andy.
Let's see. Inside of let's see, she had this thing called magnetic rock dew for removing wrinkles, and that was about $160 a pop. Who knows? Inside
magnetic rock dew,
okay. Inside each of her powders and creams and washes, of course, lurked a toxic cocktail of chemicals. If something had the power to burn off the skin of your face or poison your mind, Madame Rachel probably sold some of it. Her most used ingredients were prussic acid, lead carbonate, and of course arsenic.
What the fuck?
Arsenic.
Of course,
that arsenic, bro.
And lead. Oh my god! What the fuck did she do to these people?
Her trademark service, which was called enameling, claimed to lighten a lady's skin by removing all the hairs on her face and then dousing her with an alkaline wash one would normally use to clean a toilet.
She's charging rich women all this money to fucking rub toxic chemicals on their face.
It burns my skin.
And they're lining up around the block because they're not allowed to wear makeup anymore. So they're just fucking handing over. And this gets better too. As it goes along, this one just gets better and better. Most of her profit was a sideline in blackmail. So her treatments cost a fortune, as we've just learned, and many of her upper-class clients were in debt to her up to their eyeballs. Since married women had few rights of their own, they were basically taking their husband's money without permission. Madam Rachel would extend them credit, and then once they owed her a few $1,000s or a few £1,000, she would go try and collect. Since the women were too afraid to tell their husbands the truth because they were going to a beauty rejuvenator or whatever, and that was just like unthinkable. No, you don't want anybody to think that you thought that you looked old. So they were afraid to tell their husbands about it. And she would say, well, I'll take your jewels then. I'll hold your jewels in collateral. And then she would take the jewels to a pawn shop and sell them and keep all the money for herself. And women were too afraid to ever take her to court to try and get the jewels back because it meant that they would have had to admit, like, I went to this place to try and look younger than I am.
It would be an embarrassment, Paul. Embarrassment.
So she had them sewed up. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, she had the perfect clientele that were both stupid, greedy, and had to, like, kind of be guilty about what they were doing. And it was just, you know, it was perfect. In 1868, one of her former clients finally was brave enough to sue her for fraud and malpractice. She was eventually convicted. Her client's reputation was ruined in the process, which prevented anybody else.
Yep. You had to destroy yourself to get her. But I guess someone decided it was worth it.
Yeah. At some point, someone's just going to say, fuck that.
The newspapers and the tabloids of the day had a field day with it. They printed vicious anti-Semitic cartoons. The case seemed to confirm people's suspicion about Jews, that they were avaricious and foreign, preying on the good citizens of Britain.
Oh, yeah, because it was really avarice that motivated her. It wasn't like your society forcing her into abject poverty and prostitution and fortune-telling on the streets. Or
it couldn't have been it. Had to be that Jew thing. There was so much coverage of the case that a lot of which contained a lot of slanderous, just made up shit about her, that it would have been impossible for her to receive a fair trial anywhere in Britain. The case went to two trials before she was convicted. By the end, the judge clearly believed that she was guilty and made no bones of his opinion in front of the jury.
Yeah, so what a fair trial, dude.
Yeah.
What a kangaroo court. You're guilty of sin. I can't wait to lock you up.
The judge, find you guilty. Jury, go confirm what I've told you to do.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's over with at that point.
She was sentenced to 5 years of penal servitude.
Oh yeah.
Penal. Of which she served 3. Unrepentant, she went directly back into the beauty business. 10 years after her first conviction, she was once again convicted of fraud and sentenced to prison, where she died in 1880. During her second trial, several of her products were analyzed and found to contain nothing more than water, fuller's earth, pearl ash, starch, and hydrochloric acid.
Good times.
So she was and it's kind of like a sad story too, because she never got like ultra rich doing it. And she always just was, and she was persecuted the only way that she was able to make money. And it was due to people's own avarice and stupidity that they were even like gaffled out of the money in the first place. So whatever, man. That's a sad story. And this next one's kind of sad too. It ends sad, but this has got to be the best one.
Okay. Holy shit.
Let's
a box of treasure.
Let's talk about Barbara Ernie, and I'm not even going to tell you what this is about. Let's just go through it. Okay. So now we're going back in time a little further. We're in the 1700s now. Okay. And this is about Barbara Ernie. She's a thief so infamous that she was put to death for her crimes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Much is lost to time regarding the humble origins of this peculiar lady, but we do know a few things for sure. She was born in a small town called Feldkirch in Austria, right on the border with that tiny little country Liechtenstein. And, it had a population around 3,200 people in the 18th century. Her parents were both homeless. And from this, we can liberally deduce that her childhood was probably far from ideal. If she and her parents remained homeless, we can safely assume that she was raised on the streets, perhaps learning how to steal and con from a very early age. The next time she appears in the historic record is when she's 36, so a long life already, due to her marriage with a man of questionable repute.
Questionable repute.
I question it.
I question the repute of this man.
a man named Tirole Franz, who had a penchant for crime. Either Ernie met him during a joint operation, so maybe they teamed up on a con or something, or simply learned her tricks from him. We don't know. Either way, Barbara Ernie quickly became the talk of Central Europe, having carried out a string of crafty frauds. So here's how the legend goes. She's hot. She's got this beautiful strawberry blonde hair. I guess that got her the nickname Golden Boo.
Golden Boo.
Whatever. She also possessed what townspeople saw as nearly superhuman strength, which allowed her to tramp through the European countryside with an enormous satchel or treasure chest strapped to her back. She walked from inn to inn where she would spend her nights. Wherever she rested for the night, she would demand that her chest be locked in the best and most secure room available, since she claimed it contained, quote, fabulous treasures.
Okay.
Of course, she wouldn't be the only resident of the inn with valuables, so the room would be filled with plenty of other, like, actual treasures. However, in Barbara's trunk, there was a peculiar secret.
Okay.
After successfully managing to convince the proprietor of the inn, Barbara Ernie would casually retreat to her room to the night, leaving the chest locked away. But this is where the fun began. When the night fell and the inn was closed, Barbara Ernie's unassuming trunk came to life. Within it, there was no treasure but a little man.
That's awesome.
Whether he was a dwarf or simply a child is unknown, but I gotta imagine it was probably a dwarf. You can't really rely on a little fucking toddler or whatever.
Yeah.
To be quiet and get this done. So she does. She
fucking bad Santa, dude.
Yeah.
This is made into a movie. Please, dude. Peter Dinklage can get back in my good graces. Be in this movie.
This is amazing shit, dude. Either way, this individual would come out of her trunk at night and just basically steal the most valuable shit out of the locked room, unlock the door from the other side, run away, and then she would leave in the middle of the night and disappear too, taking the trunk with them, and they would be on to the next town pulling the same shit the next night. You know what I mean? Like
Beautiful.
that. The ruse was horribly, laughably simple, but Ernie kept it up for nearly 15 years. So she crisscrossed borders all over Europe doing this fucking scam for so long, and people were so butthurt that by the time that they caught her, they beheaded her for all this shit.
Fuck.
Yeah. I mean, she pled guilty to 17 burglaries. At the time, Liechtenstein only had around 40,000 citizens in the entire country. And they were all really butthurt because apparently she'd probably ripped about half of them off by this point.
Dude, a mob just showed up and was like, she got her head chopped off. That's the only penalty the people would have accepted. She fucking, dude, 700 people. And imagine that going out to like families and shit. She scammed like a third of this country or some shit.
Yeah, pretty insane.
I mean,
the citizens showed up to the trial and demanded justice. The court had to concede. Capital punishment was not the usual occurrence in Liechtenstein, and the nation had to import an executioner in order to go through with the execution.
So they were like extremely pissed.
It's like, we're going to hire an executioner from out of the country to come and kill you.
Something about the facts of this case, like, because to me, I almost just say, like, you know what? Let her go. But I guess Liechtenstein was like, fuck no. They weren't even an executee country. They weren't even like into that. But this one instance, they're like, you know what? Fuck that bitch.
The laws can bend sometimes.
She just ripped off too many fucking wealthy people. You know what I mean? She got on the wrong side of too many well-to-do people in a smaller kind of country, and she just wore out her welcome. You know what I mean? And
I guess so. Should have flew the coop a little early, I guess.
Yeah, she probably should have moved the whole, thing around Europe a little farther.
Yeah, once you got all that treasure, head off to somewhere else.
Yeah, we've seen Liechtenstein. How's France looking?
So both of them, I guess, were sentenced to death by beheading, and on December 7th, 1784, she was beheaded in Vaduz before a public audience of approximately 1,000 spectators. The fate of the little male assistant is unknown. It's not recorded, but we can assume that he was also probably beheaded alongside of her there.
Yeah, or ratted her out.
Yeah. On that day, she earned the dubious superlative of being the last person to be executed in Liechtenstein until the country abolished its death penalty all the way up in 1987. So that should show you how butt mad Liechtenstein was about what she was up to.
Yeah, because like they weren't executing people before then, and really they went like, even though execution wasn't officially illegal, they didn't execute anybody from 1784 until 1987 when they finally just outlawed it entirely. So like they were not. This is not a bloodthirsty country. This is not a country out to fucking kill you for every infraction. I mean, like there's probably like tons of murderers in Liechtenstein. It's like 10 years, 20 years, whatever. But this chick, she fucking snuck a dwarf in here and stole all our shit. Kill that bitch.
I mean, yeah, you gotta fucking, you have to admire that.
What?
I mean, like,
why?
I mean, you gotta obviously a group of people that aren't really into capital punishment. They don't even care. Like you said, they don't care for it.
Like,
and
to me,
convince
it's cute
them,
and charming. Like, you know,
and dude, for over almost 200 years, TJ, they couldn't convince anyone else and get another mob together in Liechtenstein and be like, let's go off with his head.
I don't get it.
That's talent, TJ.
Yeah, like,
that's
why were
talent
they so,
none of us will ever have.
I want to know why they were so mad at this woman, because, like, to me, it's like it's a cute crime. You know,
here's why they were mad. There's only 40,000 people in the entire country.
Yeah,
she has ripped off over 700 of them, and by that I mean 700 different businesses within that country. Which, like, she was ripping off the people that were staying in the fucking hotels who were traveling around Liechtenstein, the people that owned the place. And so she was literally ripping off everybody in a town over and over again consecutively for like 10 years. That's why.
Yeah, just wandering around. They're just wandering around next town. Fucking people fall for the scam again, because you have to think about it. It's like, you can't really figure it out. It's just like, oh, someone broke in the night. No one's thinking like, oh, they put a little dude in a fucking case. He pops out. That's like some shit you would see in a movie today, not fucking 250 years ago where the fuck this happened.
So anyway, that's some female con women.
Con women.
Damn.
If you liked it, let me know in the comments. If you didn't, let me know in the comments, but I don't care either way.
Deep bad pride.